In all Israel, there was not a man so highly praised for his appearance as Absalom. From the top of his head to the sole of his foot, there was no blemish in him. Whenever he cut the hair of his head, he used to cut his hair from time to time when it became too heavy for him. He would weigh it, and its weight was 200 shekels by the royal standard. According to the footnote, down at the bottom, that means 5 pounds, or 2.3 kilograms. That's a lot of hair. I don't know if that means just the hair on top, or maybe his beard as well. He said he trimmed his beard every so often. I don't know exactly. But he had, apparently, some really thick, long hair. 3 sons and a daughter were born to Absalom. The daughter's name was Tamar, and she became a beautiful woman. We never read about her again either, by the way. That's the last we ever... this is not the same Tamar as before. I think it's pretty obvious that he named his daughter after his sister. Otherwise, I don't think we would get his daughter's name. We don't get his son's name, which is unusual. But I think the reason why his daughter's name is mentioned is because it's clearly a reference to his sister Tamar, who we never actually hear about again. We don't know what happened to her. Like when he fled, she was with him. Let's see here. She lived in her brother Absalom's house, and then he fled. He left and went to Geshur. I don't know what happened to her after that. We never do find out. Absalom lived 2 years in Jerusalem without seeing the king's face. So 2 more years have gone by. So we've had, let's see here, the rape of Tamar happens. Then 2 years pass, and Amnon, the rapist, is murdered. Absalom flees, and he's in Geshur for 3 years. That's 5 total. And now 2 more years have passed. So we're up to about 7 years now. 7 years have gone by, approximately. This is obviously rounding off. It could have been a year and 8 months, or 2 years and 2 months. It's like we're rounding off here. There could have been a few months difference here and there. But it's been about 7 years since the rape of Tamar happened, which means it's been at least 8 years since the incident with David and Bathsheba happened. At least. So Absalom lived 2 years in Jerusalem without seeing the king's face. Then Absalom sent for Joab in order to send him to the king. But Joab refused to come to him. So Joab was advocating for Absalom before, but now he's not going to go see him. So he sent a second time, but he refused to come. Then he said to his servants, "Look, Joab's field is next to mine, and he has barley there. Go set it on fire." So Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab did go to Absalom's house, and he said to him, "Why have your servants set my field on fire?" Absalom said to Joab, "Look, I sent word to you and said, 'Come here, so I can send you to the king to ask, why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me if I were still there.'" Now, so he's actually in a worse spot now than he was before. He would have been a prince of Geshur, too. His mother was the daughter of the king. So he would have been royalty in Geshur, too. He could have stayed there and been king. So now he's left that, come back here, and he's in no man's land. So he's actually worse off now than he was. Now then, I want to see the king's face. And if I am guilty of anything, let him put me to death. So Joab went to the king and told him this. Then the king summoned Absalom, and he came in and bowed down with his face to the ground before the king. And the king kissed Absalom. But clearly he's not putting him to death, even though he should, actually, but he's not. The blood avenger concept here demands that Absalom be killed for having killed Amnon. That's not happening. So Absalom continues on. In the course of time, so another period of time has passed. Don't know We don't have an exact period of time here. We've gotten actual yearly figures. We had 2 years, 3 years, 2 years. That's unusual. The Bible does not usually give us these sorts of figures, these sorts of units of time to measure how much time is passing. The Bible doesn't tend to do that. But it had been doing that, but now we're back to the typical ambiguity where we really don't know how much time is passing, which is much more what we usually get, much more like what we usually get from these sections. In the course of time, Absalom provided himself with a chariot and horses, and with 50 men to run ahead of him. He's acting like a king, isn't he? He would get up early and stand by the side of the road leading to the city gate. Whenever anyone came with a complaint to be placed before the king for a decision, remember the king was supposed to settle these affairs. That was supposed to be part of his job. Absalom would call out to him. What town are you from? What town are you from? So he's asking, like, where are you from? Like, where are you from? He would answer, the person, this hypothetical individual who would do this, would answer, your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel. So Absalom is not asking them what their tribal association is. But he's asking them where they're from. So Absalom, it really doesn't matter what their tribal association is. He's the king of, his father is the king of all of Israel. He wants to be the king of all of Israel. It doesn't matter to him what tribes they're from. As far as he's concerned, he's destined to be the king of all the tribes. So he's asking them where they're from, like literally, where are you? What town are you from? But they're answering him by identifying with their tribes. So that tribal mindset is still very much in the minds of the people. They may be united under one king, but they are still very much a collection of tribes. Then Absalom would say to him, again, just any random person he would do this with, look, your claims are valid and proper, but there is no representative of the king to hear you. And Absalom would add, if only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or case could come to me, and I would see that he gets justice. I'm sure Absalom must have been a very charismatic fellow. He's very handsome. We read about that earlier. And I'm sure it was very charismatic and was very capable of charming people like this. Also, whenever anyone approached him to bow down before him, Absalom would reach out his hand, take hold of him, and kiss him. So he would not let the people bow down in front of him. He would act as though he was the same as them, not royalty above them, making them bow down to him. There's nothing that's going to endear him to the people. Absalom behaved in this way toward all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice. And so he stole the hearts of the men of Israel. At the end of 4 years, so another figure of time, we read down here in the footnotes 40, but obviously it's not really 40 years. Okay, it's 4 years here. So I don't know how much time passed in chapter 15, verse 1. Okay, we've had 7 years pass already. We got that figure added up in 2 plus 3 plus 2. Again, give or take a few months here or there. Then chapter 15 alludes to the course of time. So there's an undetermined amount of time that's passed from the time that Absalom reunited with David to the time he started doing this. And then he did this for 4 years. So now we're 11 years plus beyond the instigating event with Tamar, and 12 years plus beyond the incident with David and Bathsheba. At the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, let me go to Hebron and fulfill a vow I made to the Lord. While your servant was living at Geshur in Aram, I made this vow. If the Lord takes me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron. Now remember, Hebron is where David had been crowned king initially. That was his first capital. The king said to him, go in peace. So he went to Hebron. There must have been some sort of worship site there. I mean, that's where Abraham had been there before, way back in the early days. So there was a long association of significance with Hebron. That's where David had been king initially. I don't know if David recognizes, I don't know. Absalom is out in front of the city gate, and he's talking to people, okay? There is no way that David is not aware of what he's doing. For whatever the reason, David is still not taking action. Joab tried to get him to take action earlier. Apparently he's kind of given that up now too. I don't know why. I don't know why David is not doing anything. He's just kind of letting this go on. He's just letting this situation play out and is clearly not attempting to alter it or influence it in any way. Hello? Anyway, I have time to finish this. So I don't know why David is not taking... Maybe he still thinks that because he screwed up with Bathsheba so badly, he deserves this, or this is God's natural judgment against him. I don't know. It's like, I really don't know what's going on in David's head. As we read through this, and as we read at the end of his life in 1 Kings, he seems to have become very withdrawn in the latter part of his reign. So I don't know why. I mean, he's clearly not taking action against Absalom, but there's no way he could be unaware of it. You would think also that Absalom going to Hebron would be, kind of suspicious, because that is where David was originally king. Hebron was a significant site in Israel's history, dating back to the very beginning. And you'd think that would raise alarm bells in David's head, but who knows? I mean, I really don't know. The text doesn't say. Then Absalom, the king said to him, "Go in peace." And so he went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent secret messengers throughout the tribes of Israel to say, "As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpets, then say, 'Absalom is king in Hebron.'" 200 men from Jerusalem had accompanied Absalom. They had been invited as guests, and went quite innocently, knowing nothing about the man. These would have been obviously influential men, not just random people. Well, Absalom was offering sacrifices, so he was doing that in Hebron. There was a worship site there in Hebron, some kind of an altar. Now, their sanctuary, whatever is left of their sanctuary, is in Gibeon right now, and the ark is in Jerusalem. But they also have this worship site in Hebron, and they would have, and they have other worship sites elsewhere, no doubt. So he's doing something religious in Hebron. While Absalom was offering sacrifices, he also sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor, to come from Gilo, his hometown. And so the conspiracy gained strength, and Absalom's following kept on increasing. Now Ahithophel, as we read about in the lineage of David's mighty men at the end of the book, is chapter 23, verse 34, second half, verse 34. Eliam, son of Ahithophel the Gilonite. Okay, he's the son of a guy. No, he's the father of a guy named Eliam the Gilonite. Ahithophel, and now we read back in the account of Bathsheba that Bathsheba was the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. So Ahithophel is Bathsheba's grandfather. So he has most likely been stewing against what happened to his granddaughter ever since it happened, and David's complicity in it and his inaction against any of the things that have gone on in the dozen or so years since then. So he is not only with Absalom, he is a major mastermind of the conspiracy behind Absalom. A messenger came and told David, "The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom." Then David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us, and bring ruin upon us, and put the city to the sword." The king's officials answered him, "Your servants are ready to do whatever our lord the king chooses." The king set out, with his entire household following him, but he left 10 concubines to take care of the palace. This is a mistake. He shouldn't have done this either, but he's doing it anyway. This is going to cost him as well. So the king set out with all the people following him, and they halted at a place some distance away. All his men marched past him, along with all the Kerethites and Pelethites, and all the 600 Gittites who had accompanied him from Gath. Remember Gath? Remember how he once lived in Gath for a year and a half or so and took refuge in Gath? Apparently there were a lot of people there who actually ended up staying with him, who had accompanied him from Gath, marched before the king. The king said to Ittai the Gittite, Why should you come along with us also? Go back and stay with King Absalom. You are a foreigner, an exile from your homeland. You came only yesterday. I don't know if it was literally yesterday. The point is, he hasn't been here long. And today, shall I make you wander about with us when I do not know where I am going? Go back and take your countrymen. May kindness and faithfulness be with you. But Ittai replied to the king, As surely as the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, wherever my lord the king may be, whether it means life or death, there will your servant be. David said to Ittai, Go ahead, march on. So Ittai the Gittite marched on with all his men and the families that were with him. So he's casting his lot in with David. The whole countryside wept aloud as all the people passed by. The king also crossed the Kidron Valley, and all the people moved on toward the desert. Zadok was there too. He's the priest, and all the Levites who were with him carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of the God, and Abiathar, the other priest, there's only supposed to be one high priest, but right now there's kind of two, offered sacrifices until all the people had finished leaving the city. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm going to be leaving here in a few minutes, so I don't want to go on too long. So David is leaving the city. You get the impression, at least I do, that David has been anticipating this. He did not fight for the city. He did not take up arms against Absalom. I get the impression that he's been kind of waiting for this. I honestly kind of wonder if he even wanted this to happen. Maybe he thought that that's the natural outcome of the consequences of his sin was for him to be exiled again. David was at his best spiritually when he was on the run in his youth. When he was running from Saul, when he was running from all kinds of enemies, he was at his best spiritually back then. It could be that as an older man, on the back half of his reign as king, he recognized that he had declined, spiritually, morally. He had been compromised due to the power he had as king, and maybe even part of him secretly wanted to be free of it again. He wanted to be out on the run again. He wanted to be away from the city, away from power, have someone chasing him again, let running the country be someone else's responsibility, and let him be out with this band of merry men and outlaws again. I wouldn't be surprised if there was even a part of him that actually kind of wanted that again. It doesn't say. That's purely my speculation, but knowing human nature being what it is, I could see a situation. David obviously did nothing to prevent this from happening. This situation had been brewing for years, over a decade actually. This situation had been brewing, and it was pretty obvious to see coming. And people around him were trying to tell him to take action against it, and he wasn't. So clearly he was letting it happen for whatever the reason. Maybe he thought it was proper judgment from God. Maybe he was still blaming him. I don't know. I really don't, honestly. But I also think there is a good chance that maybe he secretly wanted to be free of the kingship. Maybe he looked back fondly at his time on the lam in the past and felt that he was closer to God back then than he is now. And maybe he kind of wants to experience that again. I could easily see that going through his mind. At any rate, he is on the run again. So David was on the run in his youth, and now he is on the run again as an older man. I don't know exactly how old he is, but this would be near the end of his reign. We've already tracked that it's been 11 or 12 years since the incident with Bathsheba. And that would have been probably, I don't know when that would have happened exactly in his 33-year reign in Jerusalem, but it wouldn't have been too early. So he's definitely in the back half of his life and career as king. So he was on the run before, and he's on the run again. And you know what? He's going to start acting more like the old David again while he's on the run. And he's going to start having some of that humility and humbleness. We're going to start seeing some of that again in David that we haven't seen in a while. So maybe he wanted it. Maybe there was a part of him that was kind of looking forward to it. Clearly he didn't fight for Jerusalem. And he spent years looking the other way while Absalom was gathering his strength. So maybe he secretly wanted it this way. I don't know. I'll ask him when I get there. I'll ask him when I see him someday, huh?